This is often referred to as one of the greatest commercials ever made. But I think Apple's 1984 might actually be kind of a bad ad. I know this sounds crazy, but stick with me. First and foremost, it's a really well-produced commercial. That shouldn't come as a surprise because this was directed by Ridley Scott, someone who you might recognize as the director from things like Alien and Blade Runner and House of Gucci. And the premise is intriguing. What is this dystopia? Who is this woman? What is she trying to do? To liberate them? To destroy this system? Even without those details, it's still very interesting and dynamic, and I imagine pretty engaging to anyone who happened to be watching when this aired in the third quarter. And it ends with this voiceover connecting what we saw to the George Orwell novel, promising 1984 is not going to be actually like 1984 and how Apple's going to do that. Very intriguing and dramatic and relevant and engaging and distinct, so why is it maybe not a very good ad? I'll be honest, it feels kind of sacrilegious to say this out loud. The commercial is hard to ignore, and it makes a very big, lofty claim, but unless you watched the Apple keynote address, you didn't really know what the product was, or what it was going to do for you, or how it was going to live up to this claim, making sure that 1984 wasn't actually like 1984. Also, we're talking about kind of early days in computers. It's going to be at least a decade before many American households will even have a computer. So this isn't a category that a lot of people who are watching the Super Bowl know about, care about, or are participating in. What does this ad do to try to convince them that they should be a part of it? And what does this ad do to convince them that it should be Apple that they do it with? The Mac started at $2,500 in 1984. In today's dollars, that's $7,500. The product is not really for the masses. It's going to be most interesting to industry professionals and hobbyists. For that audience, I think that visual of Apple fighting against the monopoly of IBM probably did mean something, but their intended audience was much larger, and the audience that they needed to reach didn't really show up, at least not until a few versions later, and by this point, Steve Jobs had already been fired from Apple. So while it's very distinct and well shot and edited, I'm actually not so sure that this ad does a good job of describing how its product is going to live up to the promise, or what that promise means for people, or at least not the mass audience that you get in a Super Bowl. In all the ways that this commercial is great, the product that it was selling wasn't really a success. I can't help but wonder if part of the reason this commercial is so well revered is because of all of the success and impact that Apple had long after this commercial hit the airwaves.